I guess generally when somebody defects from one political party to another, well, politicians keep telling us that their values, their opinions, their personal beliefs don't change. It's just the party name. But that's not the case with Laura Ann Jones, who defected from the Conservatives to Reform UK. And notice here how not just her values have changed, but even her accent.
What Reform object to is that it's a policy that simply puts a neon sign above Wales that suggests to the rest of the world to come here, possibly illegally, use our services, our benefits, our housing, when our NHS is already stretched to the match and we have veterans sleeping on the street. Your policy of nation and sanctuary sends a message to those who are arriving illegally here that they'll be looked over after first before Welsh families. Welsh taxpayers...
You're going to ask a question rather than carry on just reading your script. Can you ask the question, please?
When will you end this costly, unnecessary policy? Or do you see it running indefinitely? And what cost to the taxpayer? Thank you, Minister. And now moving to a more sobering subject, but an important one to address today. Minister, the situation in Ukraine is heartbreaking and certainly not something I'm sure any of us thought we'd ever see again in Europe. It was made clear yesterday that we all want to see Wales as a refuge for Ukrainian refugees fleeing the conflict. In order to accommodate the children and give them the education they need and deserve when they are here, we need to be prepared. Minister, with a general lack of teachers across Wales and a large number of schools oversubscribed, what steps are you taking to ensure that we are able to welcome these children into our Welsh education system with open arms?
So I'm shocked. Well, not really. We're talking about Tories defecting to Reform. But notice how her accent even changed. She sounds Welsh in 2022 and sounds English in 2025. I don't know how that's possible, but anyway. But the main point, of course, is in 2022, the Tories were like, yeah, we need to welcome people in. We need to provide them refuge. We need to provide them support. And of course, there are legitimate questions about, do we have the resources to achieve this? And we need to make sure we do have the resources. But what a U-turn. What a 180 she's done. Now in 2025, she's like, no, what the hell are you doing? Putting up a neon sign welcoming people in. We don't want these refugees. We don't want these so-called illegal migrants. I have to ask the question, and I've posed this question to Tories and others who have defected to Reform. Did you actually mean the things you said back in 2022? You know, it's like Chris Philp. Chris Philp was talking about how refugees need to be integrated into communities and they're a benefit to communities. He was saying this back in 2020, and now he's talking about leaving the ECHR in order to stop immigration. We have to ask the question, when the Tories were saying we welcome refugees in the past, was that a lie? Or has something changed? Have they been on a journey, as politicians often say? This undermines trust in politics. This undermines trust in democracy. Because how can somebody go from a position of we need to welcome refugees and we need to make sure we have the support in place for them to you're putting up neon signs to welcome in illegal migrants? Is this somebody just jumping on a bandwagon? Like when it came to Brexit? You know, people who claimed that they wanted the UK to remain part of the European Union, and then as soon as the vote came in, were like going, yes, we need to go. Brexit means Brexit. Get Brexit done, all of this rubbish. You know, what are the actual positions of these people as individuals? Let's leave the politics aside. Because once again, if a politician is saying one thing one day and doing the polar opposite the next, it undermines trust in politics and society. Because we understand that politicians lie, but generally it's given that they lie in order to get something done. But when it comes to Reform and the Conservatives could be humanitarians one day and then picking up a rifle, as Nigel Farage once said, and going to the beach to stop the boats or whatever. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.